So today we're just going to do a basic drywall patch. So the first part of what we need to do now is we've marked this out with a template, but I'm going to cut this out using my multi-tool. So I like the multi-tool because you just pick a corner where you want to start, and I use the very corner of it, and I never want to bury the blade in any more than about a ½ an inch. So from here to here is about a ½ an inch. If I get all the way over to here, then I've got this much, maybe that much sticking through the wall. And if there's a wire touching the wall, you may nick it. So we want to stay at about a ½ an inch. This is a great tool. It makes dust, but not a whole lot. So as I'm cutting here, I'm staying pretty close to the line, and I'm going to make this a little bit tight so that my patch goes in there real snug. But I can take material away. If I cut to the outside of the line too far, I can't put any material back. So now I want to check to see how close I am to the size of my template, and I'm pretty much right on. Not a whole lot of play in either direction. So now I'm going to mark my patch, and I'm going to set this on the corner so that I'm only going to have to make lines on two sides here, and I'm going to keep my lines really tight to my template. So all I've got to do is cut this out. I'm going to grab this multi-tool, and I'm going to make this shortcut. That way I'm not going to disturb all this drywall that we may be able to use later on. So now I've cut in just far enough that I'm just right even with the line. Now I'm just going to use my utility knife, make a quick cut, snap that, flip this over, and a little bit less dust than that multi-tool. Check to see if they match. Looks pretty good. So now I'm going to come over. I'm just going to set this on the edge and check to see. It goes in there really nice. So I need some backing that's going to hold my patch inside this hole. So what I've done is I've taken a couple concrete stakes and cut the end of them off, and I left them a little bit long. It really doesn't matter. So I just left myself more area to make my connections. So what I've done here is I've got my two concrete stakes down here, and I'm going to start a couple screws just to make this a little easier, because I've got to hold my pieces of wood on the inside of the hole, and it makes it really hard to hold the screws at the same time. So if I pass this up in the wall and then I bring it down, it's helpful if I have a board that's a little bit longer, because I can't see inside that wall. So if it's pretty long, I know I'm pretty safe. And notice that as I sink the screw into the drywall, I just dimple the paper on the outside. I don't go all the way through. If I go all the way through, I want to put another screw, because that screw's going to fail if you go all the way through. So I'm just below the surface, and if I can see the screw when I mud, I'm going to get my drill out and I'm going to sink it a little farther. So here's a demonstration of why I want to put the screws in. I've used up all my hands, and there's no way that I can put this screw in without dropping this board in the wall. So don't get yourself caught in this position. Make sure you put the screw in first. I just want to demonstrate I didn't forget. All right, maybe I forgot. Stop laughing, Jordan. Okay, so bring my wood up, I hold it in place. I've already got my screws set. Now this screw I'm going to have this go below the paper so you can see what not to do. In this case, you can see where the paper is turned up there because I pushed the screw in beyond it. That is not a good solid hold, and that could pop out later. I'm going to grab another screw, and I'm going to put it right over the top of it. So now, this screw can't continue to go through because the second screw that I put in is holding that board in place. I don't care what you say, Jordan. I didn't mess up. I was showing them that this screw went in too far, and I put a second screw. Stop laughing at me. So as you can see, that wood holds that drywall patch in a nice position. The one thing that's a little bit of a problem here is that you see this debris along the edge of the hole. If we ignore that and we don't do something about it, when we put tape on top of this, we're going to have a bit of a problem. So let me give you a technique to clean that up. So what we're going to do to make this easier to tape is right along this edge that we've cut away here, I'm just going to run some sandpaper over that and stay right close to the edge. Took a little bit of the old paint off on that, but it'll be fine. So we've got our backing in place here. I've got my patch. I'm going to set this in the hole, and then I'm going to run 2 drywall screws on each side. Same thing, I just want to dimple the paper. I don't want to go all the way through. So with the sandpaper, I was able to take some of that debris off along the edge, so now I've got a real smooth transition from the wall to the patch. So I'm going to lay some drywall compound, put some tape on this. So now I'm going to tape this. I prefer paper tape. A lot of folks prefer the mesh tape. The problem that I have with mesh tape is that you get these little ends that stick up, and it just makes it harder for me to finish it off. Paper tape can bubble, so it has its difficulties too, but I'm going to show you how to make that not happen. What we're going to do is start off with a bead of mud around the outside, and I'm just using a small 4-inch knife here. What I like to do with my paper is just pull out enough, or my paper tape, pull out enough, then I just pin it up against the wall and tear it off. And what I'll do is I'll start on the bottom, and I want to push the mud away from me, get that off of the pan, and pull it back towards me. Then I pin that tape down, and I pull up, and that's how I tear it off. Then I put a little mud on top of it, smooth it in. As you can see, I've covered the bottom of the patch here and the joint between the wall and the patch. So I don't want to overlay the tape. I want to butt right up against the tape. And the reason for that is that every time you go over something below the tape, you create a little bit of height that you have to get rid of by floating. So if we go right to the edge, we've covered all the crack, but we're not doubling up. So I'm going to come up here, and I'm going to stop just a little bit below the crack here because I want my piece on the top to come across. So I'm going to stop about 1 inch below, come across. Start my tape over here, and as I look at this, my mud's starting to get a little thin as I was pulling the compound out from underneath the other pieces. So I'm going to lay a little bit more mud in there, and I can still see the top of my tape, and I can see the joint right here. There's the joint for the wall and the patch. So I'm going to go right over the joint, and I'm going to bring the tape right down to the top of this tape that I put on before. And I'm going to squeeze the joint compound out of it. Now, I'm just going to lay my knife right along the outside edge of that tape, pull down, And look how clean and nice that is. Now I've got a joint from here, this piece of tape, to here. And with all this practice of putting mud and tearing tape, I think I can do it again. Butt that right up against the top. And I'm going to pull away from me. And the reason I pull away from me is if I pull down, see how the tape wants to come away from where I want it to be? So I'm going to put the tape back up there, lay it right where I want it to be. I'm going to pull the tape away from me and hold it this end. And then once I've seated that tape, then I can come down this way, and I'm going to stop right at the top of the tape down here, and I'm going to tear it off again. And you can see how clean that is. Here I'm about just maybe a 1/16 of an inch there that it's exposed. That's not going to be a problem. So now that I've got this taped, some people would say, gosh, why aren't you using a 6-inch knife? And that's a matter of preference. I like a smaller knife for patches because I can do what I think is a little more delicate work. But now that I've got the tape under the compound under the tape, now I'm going to run some over the top of it. And what you'll notice is if you look at a tradesman when he does drywall, he usually does it in a circle. And the reason for a circle is that you don't have any corners. That means when I go this way, if I were to go this way and then go this way, I'd have these square corners that all have to blend in the wall. It's actually easier to make a circle blend into the wall than it is square corners. Now, in the center of this, I've got a little depression between where all that tape was, so I'm just going to go right down the center and fill that up. And I'm just going to take any of the high spots off that I can, and I'm not going to get it perfect right now because everything's so wet. So the hardest part is stopping and let it dry. But I try to leave a little bit of mud a little bit high so that I have something to sand off so that I can get it a little bit smoother than if I didn't leave somewhat high. See how I've blended in here and I'm blended in the tape, but you can see the outline of the tape here, so I actually need some more mud on that side. I'm going to use that circle technique. And that should be good for tomorrow, and when that dries, we'll come back and sand it down. So here we are on the back side of this wall, our mock-up. Here's the patch that we just did, the basic patch with the wood backing on the back side of the drywall. You can see here where we pushed the wood through and then we screwed the drywall into the wood, and the wood we screwed into the wall. We've got a really good connection to the drywall itself, but the patch and these pieces of wood are only as strong as that connection of the screws to the face of the drywall. So if someone were to push on this patch, this potentially could get loose because the heads of the screws could be pushed through the wall, whereas the drywall on top of a stud, that could never happen. And this is the back of that California patch again, and so I feel this is a stronger patch because you've got this bond of drywall compound all around the perimeter of it, and it's part of the wall. Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you would like to check out our products, click on the link below in the description for easy protection. And to check out our other videos, please click on the link up here.